Hey guys, Dee Williams here, and you are listening to episode number 6 of the StaffingStartup.tv podcast. Let's get fired up.
Welcome to StaffingStartup.tv, the podcast that gives you direct access to the world's leading recruitment, staffing, and startup experts. Dee Williams speaks with amazing thought leaders, venture capitalists, and technology trendsetters about their journey, challenges, and successes related to recruitment, staffing, and hiring. Now, here's your host, Dee Williams.
Hey everybody, this is Dee Williams, and welcome to the StaffingStartup.tv podcast, where we get fired up about recruitment and staffing. That's right, this podcast is all about the ins and outs, ups and downs, and all arounds of finding and nurturing and securing exceptional talent for companies all across the globe. And today we are diving right into one of my favorite segments, Startup Stamina, where we talk to amazing experts about their journey, challenges, and successes related to starting a business in the recruitment and staffing industry. And today's guest is coming to the table ready to inspire and motivate you with his startup journey, telling, proving, and showing you what it takes to launch and start a business within the recruitment and staffing industry. It is with my humble pleasure that I introduced our special guest today, founder and CEO of JLW Consulting, Jermaine Williamson. Hey, Jermaine.
Hello, Dee. How are you?
I'm amazing. First of all, thank you so much for being here. It is such a pleasure to have your energy here, you know.
Absolutely. We're excited about staffing, right?
We got to get fired up about staffing. I love it. All right, so we're going to just dive in because I want people to know a little bit more about JLW Consulting and you and how you all are supporting the recruitment and staffing industry.
Okay. Yeah, so just a quick overview. The company is nearly a year old. And it was founded, basically after, over 20 years of working in the staffing and recruiting industry and understanding that there were several challenges that needed to be addressed, right? When you start off, as long as I've been in it, you start off understanding that it was more manual processing back in, mid 90s. Now it's all technology driven, right? And recruiting, is one of those things that's very cyclical. You're dealing with obviously, humans, and you got to understand there's different temperaments, there's different needs, there's different life cycles of education and experience. And the recruiter is kind of that broker for the talent. So understanding that and really, getting to learn the business over that time period, I said, there's a way that I can take some of this experience and working in different aspects of staffing and recruiting, from an individual contributor as a recruiter to an account manager in the staffing industry for many years, and then to operations, and then overall into corporate talent acquisition leadership. So I've seen all the life cycle, and it's exciting, it's frustrating at times, but it's also very rewarding because I always felt that in recruiting we do noble work, right? We're always at the point of helping someone get to their next opportunity, or showing up in a time where they may be going through a life challenge and they need to get back on their feet from a financial perspective. And we do all of that. So JLW really took all that experience that I've gained and really put it into a package to say, what can I do to help those particular segments, right? The individual contributor and or the candidate, as well as the companies that just may not understand how dynamic recruiting is, and how can I lend that experience that I've gained over these years to help colleagues, friends, and also prospects gain an understanding of why we love recruiting and talent acquisition so much.
That's awesome. So you're talking about on the client side, like, who's your ideal client? Like, who do you work with?
Yeah, it ranges. I don't really differentiate between the startup that needs to have a talent acquisition function embedded into their deliverable, or an established organization, be it mid-size or a large company, that may have a robust talent acquisition team, but need more diversity in regards to diversity of thought, diversity of process, and understanding how to attract and retain talent in an organization. Because it's easy to post a job up on the job boards, right, and hope that you get talent to come to it. But you also need a team of individuals that can go out there and source those individuals who have niche skill sets and or who aren't looking for opportunities every day, those passive candidates that want to hear about great opportunities but necessarily don't want to put their resumes out on the job boards and get calls from 100 different recruiters. So that gives us an opportunity to go in and counsel each entity on how to do that. So my clients range. I have clients that are startups that just say, hey, we're part of a bigger team and we need to have a talent acquisition function stood up. And then I have organizations saying, hey, we're just not getting it done. We may not have the right resources on our team right now. So we need someone with your expertise to come in and either train the individuals and or help us maximize some efficiencies in our current process, or break it all the way down to its inception and start a new process over that works.
Wow, that's awesome. That's phenomenal. So I definitely want to dive into, because you mentioned so many things that, get me really amped up over here, right?
So I'm an IT developer and my wife is an RN. We'd been thinking about starting a business together for a while, but wasn't really sure what type of business to start. We came across this video on YouTube on how to start a niche staffing business. And we knew that's what we were looking for. It's been roughly 6 months of placing developers and RNs, and the financial forecast is looking like $1 million in sales just in our first year of business. You too can learn how to get started with your business at staffingpreneursacademy.com. That's staffing, PRENEURS, academy.com.
So many of you know, and I know you know, Jermaine, that I coach and train a community of entrepreneurs who are starting, growing, and scaling their very own niche recruitment and or staffing agency. It's about 1,000 folks in the community that we have right now. I would say more than half of are active. And one of the reasons that I was even inspired to put together staffingstartup.tv was because people are going to come into this industry every day, right? And they're going to start their business in this space. But I was passionate about people being able to come into the industry and start the business and do it the right way, right? To really understand what's involved in, starting from scratch, bootstrapping their business, from the ground up. And so we're going to step away from the business aspect for a couple of moments, dive back into that a little bit, but I want to ask you a little bit more about your journey. Like, how did you get started with this business in particular? Like, what brought you to the world of recruitment and staffing as a whole?
Yeah, so, right out of college, I was interviewed by a staffing firm, Aerotech. You may have heard of a pretty big outfit. Yeah. And one of their recruiters came to Virginia State University to interview, graduating seniors. And at that time, I didn't know anything about the staffing industry. When I thought about staffing was, filling in for an admin who was out sick or a receptionist that needed coverage. I didn't understand the technical deliverable that a staffing function can bring. And it was early on in its inception back then. And, I really was just like, hey, I'm going to give it a try. I need an opportunity. I'm just graduating, didn't have any other prospects. And I moved to Richmond and started there. But they sent us to training up in Baltimore for about 2 weeks. And at that time, I understood what it was about. It was really being a consultant to that talent force that, it wasn't a lot of them at that time because technologies were still developing. We're talking about in the COBOL age where you talk about big mainframe systems and things of that nature. But they needed people to connect clients who had those servers and those big mainframes, like the healthcare industry, to the talent that can perform the technical work. So I started off in that realm, really understanding how to make that connection. And candidly, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the process that it takes to, be a consultant to the talent force, but more importantly, a broker to the client who needed to find that talent. And, as I said earlier, back then it was more manual than it was, technology driven because we had to hand deliver resumes, right? Yeah. We had to cut the top off and put the header on it and photocopy it and then hand deliver it to a customer, which is archaic these days. You send everything by email.
Jermaine, really quickly, I just wanted to chime in because I tease people about this all the time. When they talk about having Google and I'm like, we had the white pages and the yellow pages and the postal mail. And when fax came, it was like, hallelujah, you know what I'm saying? So you talk, I just had to throw that in there. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right. No, absolutely. And you're right. It's certainly a different level of convenience these days. And access to information is so quick now that, before we had to read the newspaper to find the jobs that were available in the Sunday Times, right?
Yeah.
And now you can just go to any job board that's out there and you find thousands of opportunities.
Yeah.
So it's just different.
Yeah.
But, how I got started, and it was really loving it from that ground roots, perspective, and just understanding how it all worked. And just really hone my skills on it, really becoming a professional recruiter, understanding that, there was someone and a candidate that was depending on me to help them get an opportunity, and a client that was depending on me to help them find a talent. So that really resonated with me, and I grew to love it, and, really propelled through my career, just really focusing on how to make it better each opportunity that I got.
And so when did you come to the decision that, okay, I'm going to start, JLW, this is going to be my business and this is my career? Now, you and I have a kind of a backstory, right? So
Right.
we kind of started our entrepreneurial journey sort of at the same time. I talk about it all the time, right?
Right.
So at what point, I kind of know, but tell the listeners, like, at what point did you decide, I'm going to do this on my own? I'm not going to work for an Aerotech or someone else, but this is actually going to be my business model.
Right. Yeah. After working in corporate for a number of years in many different companies, large, small, medium startups, I really started to understand that I was acquiring the knowledge necessary to be able to affect many people, not just working in one organization, impacting, recruiters there as well as talent base. And I said, you know what, if I put together a solution based on my competency and my ability to deliver, I can really affect a lot of different companies, right? And a lot of different organizations, talent acquisition, HR, and the like. So I said, you know what, when you start out, you think about what is going to be your off-ramp, right? What year is it going to be for you? Is it year 5, 10, 15, 20? And, I'm right at 22, 23 years. And I said, you know what, there's no better time than now for you to really take a chance and say, I've learned as much as I can learn working for anyone else. Now it's time for me to really take my show on the road and help all these organizations and individuals really get great at being, a talent acquisition function, being great corporate recruiting functions, and as well as being great recruiters, because I work with a lot of independent recruiters as well that, get frustrated at, the process that it takes. But at the end of the day, it's about the customer service aspect.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, you know what, let's put this all together and really get my foundation built. And it's always been about talent acquisition, but more importantly, how it's a science and an art. And really understanding it from that perspective is why I started JLW and wanted to really impact different variables. And as I said, I work with, many different sizes. So my solution can be scalable, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what it's about. It's not just a one size fit all type deal, but I can definitely cater it to whatever company that has a need. And that's what something I was excited about. So I decided to go ahead and separate from corporate. And in April of last year, I did it. And I tell you, best decision I've ever made in my life. More importantly, from the discretionary time that it gives you to be able to understand how you can impact different markets. And I just thoroughly enjoyed the journey. And let's be clear, it's not been all roses, right? It's frustrating and you deal with many different variables. But the underlying theme was I own it, right? That I can make those decisions and I'm not under the direction of someone else or a leader or another CEO or board or equity firm or whomever. I can now set the tone for what I want my organization to be. So that was very, very, very important to me, and it resonated so well.
You're listening to the StaffingStartup.tv podcast. For more info on today's show, be sure to check out the show notes at StaffingStartup.tv.
So is this your first go round with starting a business?
No, this is actually my second run at it. In 2007 and 2008, I started a similar organization offering the same skills. It was called JLW Consulting Incorporated. And at that time, the housing market burst and financial markets went crazy and no one was buying external services to support their organization because they were basically trying to survive, right? They had to cut a lot of staff and, they just didn't have the income or the revenue to support bringing in external resources. So I decided to go back to corporate in 2009, 2010 to be able to, obviously sustain, but also get more knowledge and understanding of how things were going to be different. Because again, when you have that type of unemployment rate had skyrocketed. You had a lot of talent in the market from many different industries, and it really had to reset, recruiting and staffing to a point where you had all this talent now, but you didn't have a lot of companies that were buying the talent. So it kind of changed things for me, but I got to learn it and kind of let things level out over a couple of years. But going back to corporate gave me a different perspective, because now my role in corporate changed quite a bit, where I was, a manager, director level. I got an opportunity to stand up total talent acquisition organizations from inception, like build out processes and things of that nature. And then also went into executive leadership as a VP and a COO. So I got to understand it from a deliverable and metrics and profit and what that all means to the staffing industry and why companies buy and what are the triggers that companies buy from organizations such as myself. So I learned some valuable information that helped me on the second go round go out and really be stronger out the gate.
Yeah, that's kind of when we met around that bubble
Absolutely.
time.
Yes.
And we were both in our own separate businesses trying to figure this thing out, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And we had a lot of late nights, do we do this? Proposals and all types of stuff. I talk about it all the time.
Absolutely.
But those are the things that I believe really give you that startup grit, right?
Yes, indeed. Right.
And that really kind of prepare you. And I was interviewing a angel investor a while back, and he said, "Listen, D, when someone comes to me with an idea," he said, "if they haven't failed before, I don't care how great
Absolutely.
the idea is, I do not do business with them."
Right.
And I thought, wow, that's major. So thank God for my failures.
Hey. Yes, indeed.
Thank goodness for the failures, right? So it's really cool. And I really wanted to stress that, because a lot of people think when you reach a level of success that you just woke up one night and ding, it just happened. And it's like, no, there's a journey. There's something that you've gone through.
Absolutely.
You've experienced things, good, bad, up, down, and indifferent, in order for you to get to where you are now. So you actually have that grit up under your belt.
Yes,
and that experience. That's awesome. So can you tell me, has there ever been a point in your journey, and I want you to be honest, where you felt like completely throwing in the towel?
Oh, absolutely.
And then how did you get through the moment? But that's a two-part question.
Right. So to answer your first part, absolutely. I mean, there's time. This is a frustrating grind. I mean, there's no doubt about it, because it really tugs at the personal aspect of it, because no one takes rejection easily, right? Mm-hmm. And oftentimes as leaders, as salespeople, we feel that someone saying no is saying no to us. And that's not normally the case. It's about saying no to the service at that time and the cost associated with that service. But we're humans, so we take it personally, and it starts to eat at our confidence, starts to eat at our ego. It starts to make us feel like we're not capable. And yeah, I had those nights where I sat down and say, you know what, it's easier for me to go back to corporate. I could put my resume up on LinkedIn or Indeed and get interviews and get a job in the next couple of weeks. But that was the main reason why I started the company, so that I could make that separation and really could test my, intestinal fortitude and my staying power in regards to what I felt my competency was. So yeah, there's many times where you just sit and you're like, you know what, this is too much. I'm going weeks without a check. I'm going, I'm having to leverage credit cards. I'm going to get personal loans. I'm trying to, sustain my family. I'm doing a lot of things that are just hard when you have a dream that you have to invest in. So there were many nights where I was like, I even had conversations with my wife about, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and get a job. But, even to her credit, she was like, no, that's not what you wanted to do. You didn't start this to quit, right? And if you are going to throw in the towel, when things get tough, the first time, then you never should have started it. Because you got to understand that anything that you do that's going to yield success is going to take some type of hit. It's going to take some type of emotional toil, turmoil, and it's going to deal with your ability to weather the storm. And those storms get real rough. It gets bad where you have to lean on. And we talked about you and I having conversations back in 2007, 2008, where it was like, you know what? I need to just go back and get a job, and I could just fold this up, and I tried, and you start saying all those defeating type terms. But if you really love it and you're really invested in it emotionally, financially, spiritually, and everything else, then you figure out a way. You pray if you're a praying person, you talk to your mentors, and you talk to people who have been through it to give you that understanding that this is not, a rosy situation where you just, plant a seed and you get a forest full of trees. you're going to get some things that just don't take shape. You're going to get some clients that say no. You're going to think you want a proposal and they say they're not buying right now. And you have to be willing to face each day with the same type of energy, the same smile, the same understanding that this day may produce the opportunity that's going to yield success. So you got to build that up in yourself and really encourage yourself to stay through those tough times. And when you get on the other side, I tell you, it's a different level of happiness and success.
Heck yeah. And, I always talk about Steve Jobs. He helped build Apple and then got fired from his own company, right?
His own company, that's right.
Or Walt Disney. I think I read recently he went bankrupt twice.
Right.
Like twice.
Absolutely.
And, so we wouldn't be able to enjoy the luxuries that we have today, with the iPhone and iPad. I mean, everything in my life is something, right?
Absolutely.
Or to be able to vacation in such a luxurious type of way through Disney with our families, if those individuals didn't have the tenacity to continue to move even when everything was against them.
Right.
And so I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because a lot of startups, the moment that it gets rough, they're like, oh, I just can't do it, and it's like, come on back, honey bunny.
You gotta have that grit.
You gotta have that grit. You gotta have that grit. Okay, cool. So what was your biggest learning lesson?
Well, the learning lesson was, the point that I made, in regards to understanding that this is going to be a marathon and not a sprint. Nothing is going to happen overnight, even if you have the biggest network. And I know a lot of people, and I've helped mentor and lead a lot of people. That doesn't guarantee you success, that you're going to get opportunities from those relationships. And, it's not going to guarantee you that your firm is going to be successful. But what it does is it gives you the opportunity to keep pushing forward. So, the lesson I learned is you have to level your emotions in this thing, right? You can't be too high on the highs. You can't be too low on the lows. And you have to understand that you are, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as an owner, you are the direct representation of your firm, and your mood sets the tone for how people perceive you, how customers perceive you, and how, buyers are going to interact with you. Because if you're always negative, or if you're complaining on, Glassdoor or on LinkedIn, talk about how hard it is, or that, this industry is, for the birds and this, that, and the other, that's going to resonate. But if you're on there like, what, today's a great day and I'm trying to find someone that I can impact and help out with my competency, you'll be surprised how many emails you get. You'll be surprised how many likes or, comments you get of people giving you encouragement or connecting you to other folk. So you've got to understand that words are power. You have to understand that you are, in control of your own destiny to a point by how you carry yourself with this and how you deal with those highs and lows.
Yes, that faith, I call it faith, right?
Absolutely.
Some people refer to it as law of attraction.
Right.
It goes in so many different areas, but it is the core of who we are,
yes,
right?
Indeed. It really is.
So I love that.
For a couple of years now, I've been thinking about starting my own recruiting business, but wasn't really sure how. About 6 months ago, around 1 a.m, I was playing around on YouTube and came across this very energetic lady named Dee Williams, who shows professionals just like me how to start a recruiting and staffing business. I was blown away. I signed up immediately. Now, 6 months later, my business is up and running. I've made about $500,000 in revenue and still growing. Learn how you can get started too at staffingpreneursacademy.com. That's staffing, PRENEURS Academy.com.
Okay, so to lighten things up a little bit, tell us a little bit about your biggest accomplishment around the business and how did you celebrate it?
Wow. Well, it's still going on, believe it or not. I mean, when I first started it, you kind of mentally give yourself some time to think that, all right, it's going to take, 6 weeks, 6 months, a year for this thing to really get going. And my first couple of weeks out, I put an announcement up on LinkedIn and on social media just saying, hey, I've transitioned from corporate. Here's what I'm doing. Here's my company. Here's my website. And I got a bunch of people that just reached out with congratulations. But more importantly, I got people who I didn't know would need my services reached out. And, a classmate of mine from Virginia State reached out. She has a mental health agency down in the Tidewater area, and she needed some HR support. She needed some operational support. And she reached out and said, hey, can you help me? Can you help me train my staff? Can you come in and help us how to stand up a talent acquisition function and branding and marketing and things of that nature? All stuff that I'm capable of, but didn't think that would be a market. And so she contracted me for about 6 months at a very nice rate to get me started, which gave me more seed money. And so, to celebrate, it was more of, celebrating internally with the family, right? And really appreciating her giving me that opportunity. But what that did was gave me more confidence, right? That you don't have to pigeonhole yourself to think that I'm only going to work with the big companies. I'm only going to go after the Lockeeds, the Khakis, the Boos, the Lidls, or, any other, Coca-Cola or, Apple or any of those. You can get opportunity from anywhere as long as you're, one, marketing, two, you're competent and confident in your ability, and you can help anyone in any industry. And for me, the celebration was just about, yeah, this is exactly what you thought. This is exactly what you dreamed about, what you prayed about. And now you're seeing it come to fruition. So that was kind of my launch pad into saying, okay, now the sky's the limit. I can go after anyone and have that, that level of impact. And that really set me on a good path to some really great things that are currently happening. I just won a couple of contracts and some big things that are really on the horizon, knock on wood, in the next couple of days that will really change the outlook on the company right away, really move us.
Wow. So, we're cheering for you in every way,
I appreciate
right?
it. Thank you. As usual,
Big
I know
things.
you are.
You already know
Yes,
that's
indeed.
happening, right?
Certainly.
So, okay. So first of all, I have to say you're amazing,
Thank you.
right? And I'm sure everybody would agree he's amazing, right? The energy is just so positive, and to just be able to hear someone, kind of go through a journey to get to where they are now, that's really awesome. So I want to dive back into the business aspect because, that's where I really get excited when we start talking about the nuts and the bolts. So the war on talent, the talent shortage, the skills gap.
It's real.
These are conversations that are taking place in every boardroom across
Absolutely.
the globe. So again, you already said it's real, but I was going to ask you, is this hype or is this something that that you've experienced to be true, and what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's 100% true. And I tell you, talent is not being developed at a fast pace, right? So you have companies that are in the technology space where technology changes every moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about how many times you got a new version of your iPhone from the original iPhone, right? Every 6 months, every 7 months. Technology is changing that fast. And so the skills aren't being developed as fast enough, but the technology from a deliverable, especially to entities like the government and the commercial sector, are trying to find all this talent, and they're trying to find it at an affordable price. So you have a talent pool that are the Generation Xers that have 20, 25 years of experience, who have an expectation of X dollars an hour or salaries that are astronomical. The companies can't pay it because they're under budget constraints. And then the millennials don't have the talent yet because they haven't been out in the workforce long enough to really get it to the point where they can make an impact for an organization. So that leads to frustration, right? So now you have the CEOs and the board and all the leaders in the company saying, what can we do to help that? So now you see things like the STEM programs coming online, right? At even down to the K through 12 range, where they're trying to teach kids about science, technology, engineering, and math to get them ready for the next 10, 15 years, where it's even going to be crazier, right? So that talent gap and talent development is extremely real. It's frustrating, but I'm optimistic that we're starting to bridge the gap with things like certifications, right? Even when, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we never thought about cybersecurity. We never thought about having to secure data to the level where information is residing on the cloud or our bank cards. We used to write checks to go and buy groceries, right? We didn't have the bank card technology yet, or it was cash. So now you're having to secure data, and think about all the breaches that we've heard in the last, couple of years, from Target to the DSS and, the clearance information getting compromised. So there's a big need that's, at an alarming pace, and we just don't have the talent trained to the point where they can fill that skills gap. And then the budgets come into play. So it's absolutely real. And I've been part of some very high level discussions as an executive where we've thought of many different things. We thought about bringing in training courses directly to impact and train up our workforce, our current workforce that are on programs, to try to lead them to different areas within the organization. That takes time, though, and we don't have a lot of time because the work needs to be done.
And so, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I see in the cybersecurity space, a lot of executives that I have talked to have said, well, can you bring people in from other industries who may have a specific skill set, like in mathematics or whatever the case may be, and bring them into the cybersecurity space? And I'm like, of course we can do that, but are you guys ready to train? Are you ready to put that in your budget? So do you find that a lot of companies have the budget for talent development?
No, they don't. It's not a budget line item as a proactive measure. It's a budget line item as a reactive measure. And usually it's in the middle of the year or towards the end of the year, the third quarter, where they need to meet plan or they need to meet revenue and profit goals. And by then it's too late. And also you got to think about with that talent development piece, when they say, are you ready? Can you really make an impact? And do you have the staff that's capable of training that talent force? And then if you get them engaged, when you talk about going to commercial and bringing in that talent, and if you're a government entity, now you got the clearance process. Right? If you need to get somebody cleared to a TS level, that may take you a year and a half, just because of the backlog that's in DSS. So you can't really make an impact by going outside and maybe getting labor that's more affordable to come in, because it takes time to get them to be able to go on a program and make impact with your customer. Then you look at a whole different market that they can't even touch, right? The H-1B visa, because you need to be a U.S. citizen in order to work on these programs. So where you may have a lot of talent that you can get from different countries and things of that nature, you can't bring them in on your systems because you need to have them cleared as a U.S. citizen. So that puts another barrier. So there's so many things that are hindrance. And what companies are trying to do is figure out, okay, can I build these hybrid organizations, right? Work with a small organization that I bring on as a partner that may have 50 or 75 people that I can now just bring under my umbrella and impact talent development that way. Yeah, that works. But again, you still have a skills gap because these people aren't trained specifically to what your mission is. They're trained to what they're doing on individual programs. So absolutely, it's a real problem. It's going to be a continuing problem with talent development and talent management, because you're not able to find the talent fast enough that can make an impact on your business today. So it's always going to be a lag there, and that is a problem. And it's really no main solution that can address it, because it all depends on folks wanting to go into those industries like cybersecurity or Java development or networking and things of that nature, and the talent just is not developing that fast. It really is.
So what do you think about the fact that there are, like, I was on a plane like a year or so ago, and this guy says, now I'm telling you, I'm always on a plane and somebody starts talking to me about recruitment and staffing as if they can just feel the energy coming from me, right?
Right.
And so he's like, what do you do? I tell him what I do. And he's like, oh my gosh, because this is what I do. So secretly, he was creating a technology to eliminate recruiters, right? To eliminate the third-party agencies and give the power back to the people so that they can apply directly to the hiring managers, and the hiring managers can apply directly to them. I also have heard a number of companies say that we're investing in recruitment training and development so that we don't have to outsource to, third-party entities. Like, what are your thoughts about that? And do you feel like, that is, an intelligent decision to make as an executive in a company?
So to answer that question, no. You will always need the human touch when you're dealing with humans, right? We're not developing widgets, and we're not, placing robots who don't have any feelings, emotions, or anything. And even though you want to give the power back to the people, what happens is when you do that, everyone feels that they're qualified for every job. How many times have you seen one person apply to 30 different jobs on the job board because they feel they have, one of the skill sets that is asking for? that will put enormous pressure on a project manager who has to deliver on a project, satisfy a customer, run operations, manage a staff, to now have to look through 300 or 400 resumes, of which 350 of them are unqualified, and they have to disposition all those candidates. So you need recruiters, but you need recruiters who understand and respect recruiting from a deliverable standpoint. You and I are old school recruiters. We understand that we need to talk to people on the phone. I work with recruiters who will send out just a screening form to someone and say, hey, fill this out and send it back to me when you're done. I cringe at that. That's extremely disrespectful to me, because you're not even respecting the person's time, and not willing to have a 15-minute discussion about his or her skill set and how they can be, an asset to your organization. So you can't eliminate recruiters altogether. Yeah, there's something that technology can help with. There's screening forms on applicant tracking systems where they have the knockout questions where they ask you, do you have a clearance, or, do you have this particular technology? Yes, those are helpful. But when you get down to that person being somewhat qualified, you should have a recruiter reach out to them for a couple of reasons. One, candidate experience. There's nothing more frustrating for a candidate to submit a resume into an applicant tracking system and never hear from anyone. And then what that does is they go on Glassdoor, they talk to their peers, and now your company becomes the company that's a waste of time, and you have no idea why.
The StaffingStartup.tv podcast is intended to provide you with tips, tools, and strategies that will help you make better decisions. Although we're licensed and authorized, we don't provide financial advice. So please consider your own situation or get advice before you make any decision based on anything in our podcast. Visit StaffingStartup.tv to learn more about how we're regulated or access our terms and conditions.
But I don't know if you want to go back in and chime back in when you were talking about the brand.
Yeah, so from the brand perspective, having that recruiter or that human touch is important, right? Because, it's a representation of your company. If you are doing, just electronic marketing, or you're just sending out forms and having people respond back in, you lose the opportunity to put a personality to your organization, to have a culture of your organization. That resonates with candidates. If they just feel that you're a conveyor belt of talent, one, you're going to have high attrition rates, because you don't even have a chance, the candidate doesn't have a chance to ask the important question. What is your organization about? What are your mission, vision, and values? What are you doing as a social aspect? How do you feel about this initiative? They don't have that opportunity. So they get in and they see, man, this is just, they're just putting butts in seats. And now they're looking to get with an organization that has some feeling behind it. And you will start seeing people walk out the door. So that brand initiative with having a recruiter is extremely important.
So what books are you reading, and what books do you suggest that a newbie taps into right now?
One that I'm reading just from my own personal advice is called The Consulting Bible, right? So it gives you the foundation, and it'd be great for your entrepreneurs to take a look at, because it gives you an understanding on how to be a great consultant to your customer base or to your prospects, how to set up your organization from a back-end perspective, how to do invoicing, how to set up your agreements, how to do non-disclosures, how to conduct a meeting. I mean, it really goes down to that nth degree on how to be a professional consultant and how to add value and how to come to the table with competency. The other book that I'm reading that's very good is called Mindset. Now, that goes back to what we were talking about with having that staying power and the grit, right? To be able to weather the storm of when things get rocky and where your customer's not coming through, or your invoices are late and they're not paying them. And you're like, man, I got to pay my mortgage, or I got to pay my light bill. So you have to, kind of weather a storm and get your mind to a place where you have to understand that there's things that are going to happen that are out of your control. But what you do about it, how you respond to them are very important. But more importantly, how you prepare yourself for always building that pipeline so that you don't let that be in the cog in the wheel to your success. So those two books have been a foundation for me recently. I've read many of books. Winning is a Choice. Success is a Choice by Rick Pitino, who's former coach of Louisville and Kentucky. I read The Winner Within. I read Good to Great. I read a lot of self-help and business-related books that really give you perspective that, as you mentioned, these companies weren't built overnight. I also read Jack Welch's book. Jack Welch is, to me, the godfather of American business and what he did with GE. More importantly, he really takes the aspect of understanding how to run an organization down to simple terms, right? Be decisive, right? Make a decision and follow through with it. Do what you say you're going to do. If something's not working, get rid of it. Those type things. And as an owner, you don't have the luxury of letting things fester for too long. That could really kill your business. So if you're looking to grow, or if you're looking to bring on new clients or bring on new staff, you have to make sure that you're prepared, to embrace that, or you'll fail. So those two books have been, really good. The Consulting Bible and Mindset, very good book.
I love that. So what advice would you give to a new staffingpreneur who's looking to just get started in this industry?
Get a mentor. Seek out individuals that are in your space, either through networking, working at bigger firms, or where you can really get an understanding of what it takes, mentally and emotionally, financially too. Because some folks think that, okay, it may not be expensive as a entry cost to get into this business, but if you land a big project, will you be able to sustain it, right? Will you be able to support it where they say, hey, we need 30 people, and we're going to go through you exclusively. Do you have $30,000 to be able to handle a payroll per week, right? And you got to be prepared for success, as well as being able to handle the downtimes. And also being able to, be comfortable with what you don't know. Just because you worked in the industry doesn't mean that you know everything associated with the industry, especially from a leadership perspective. You may know how to recruit. You may know how to be a good account manager or a manager, but you may not know how to read a balance sheet well enough to know that you can't make that investment on the new iPads for everyone this month. You have to wait till your invoices start to clear. So understanding all aspects of your business before you try to go out and market and take on more than you can chew, because you only get one chance to make a first impression. And if you fail by overselling and under delivering, you'll never be able to rebound from it. Never.
Yeah. Awesome advice. Awesome. Well, I am so humbled that you took the time out of your day to hang out with us here, to inspire and to motivate and to just share your story. First of all, before I even say where, first of all, I just want to say thank you.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you so much.
I'm glad to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to an old friend and share whatever knowledge I could.
Naturally, thank you. And hold on, not old now. Look at me. Look at this.
I meant that not in a literal term. That's figuratively speaking. You're a young lady.
I'm teasing. I have to, stroke my ego a little bit. Where can our audience find you online and offline?
So my email address is Jermaine@JLWConsultingLLC.com. Our website is www.JLWConsultingLLC.com. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Jermaine Williamson, and my Instagram is JLW Consulting LLC, and I have a Facebook page that's JLW Consulting LLC as well. So any of those places you can find information about us. You can also see some of the quotes and motivation that I put out there for anyone, but more importantly, talking about the staffing industry and talking about some of the things that companies should be aware of, like retaining talent and all those things. So any of those, and I'm glad to talk to anyone who is starting in the business, any of your prospects and some of your clients that just want to hear some of the good stories, some of the horror stories, some of the challenges, and also be a resource that they can reach out to when they're thinking about throwing in the towel, and telling them why it's not a great thing to do. And if you stay a little bit longer, you may be able to see that success you've been waiting for.
What's your phone number?
It's 571-643-2255. That's my phone number.
Yes,
you can reach me
you
at
got to
all
get a
times.
phone number. Yeah, definitely. Listen, Jermaine, you have been amazing. We really, really appreciate you and your energy so much. I'm sure you're going to come back on the show.
Whenever you invite me.
Okay, perfect. All right, awesome. I love that. Thank you so much for being here.
Very welcome.
Jermaine Williamson, JLW Consulting. Love you so much.
Thank
you.
you.
Have an amazing day. Thank you.
You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to the StaffingStartup.tv podcast. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you'd like more information on any of our stories, or would like to know how to get involved and share your story, head over to our website at StaffingStartup.tv. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, and please leave a 5-star rating and a super awesome review so others can enjoy the show too. Check out the live video footage on YouTube. Have a great week, and we'll see you next episode.